Expansion starts here, the podcast. My name is Rhett Butler, Marketing and Communications Manager for Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. And I always have amazing guests, specifically in-house guests. Like today, I have Jose Bernes, Business Development Manager for Manufacturing and Warehousing for the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. What's up, Jose? Good to see you, sir. Man? How are you?
It's great to be here.
Indeed. And I'm glad to have you, man. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I'm going to give you a title. I look at you as an industrial evangelist, someone that really believes in the power, the transformative power, if you will, of manufacturing and warehousing as an industry. We can just combine that and call it industrial. And you told me a great story about growing up in Mexico and how warehousing and that whole industry affected you because you saw the transformational power. Do you mind sharing that story again?
Absolutely. So I'm originally from Monterrey, Mexico, which is the industrial capital of Mexico. And growing up, most of economic development in the state of Nuevo León and the city of Monterrey was tied directly to industrial development. Okay. And so historically, even from its foundations, many of the leaders that did very transformational projects were directly involved in industrial development. And so ultimately, to this day, many of the top Fortune 500 companies manufacture and have some presence manufacturing in Mexico. Wow. And just growing up and seeing that was very transformative because ultimately, many of these American companies have good paying jobs yes. And that fosters development not only around the community but in the entire state. So you see then housing developments that go close to where these industrial facilities are. And there's this socializing aspect as well where you see these companies and they push each other and like bring salaries up and bring in, technology transfers and new development. So looking at that, my background in economic development started from that industrial lens. And, once I got married and I moved to the DMV, being able to do that now in Prince George's County in this capacity has been, awesome. Because ultimately, what a lot of people think of industrial, right? Like they don't really think about the fundamentals of the industry, which is, who makes it,
exactly,
who distributes it,
right,
and where do you buy it, right?
Indeed.
And so ultimately, everyone wants their packages delivered in 2 days, right?
Man.
But how are you going to get there, right? So you need, a good distribution network, and you need warehouses where to store, to be able to deliver last mile. So I'm sure all of these things, probably came in like 2-3 days, and that's because of that, warehouse network. So ultimately, some people might say like, oh, like warehouses are, it's a big block and it's ugly, but we're talking about jobs. We're talking about, the things that we ultimately use and need. Right. And so they play a very fundamental role both in the local and national and global economy because ultimately you're importing things, right? You probably like sushi, so you're bringing it. Yeah, so if you're bringing in the fish from Japan, where is it going to be stored, right? So
if you want the real Kobe beef.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be imported. It has to be stored in a refrigerated warehouse.
That's right.
And then distributed in, and keeping the cold chain, laying consistent. So all of that is, my day-to-day, and I'm just always very excited to talk about that.
No, dude. And it's awesome because after COVID, we're at the point of no return in relation to how important logistics really are. It's front and center in everybody's lives.
And what's really interesting about that is, after COVID, it was very evident. And I actually got to see it both from the Mexico and U.S. perspective because I was back then I was working at the American Chamber of Commerce.
Wow.
And so what a lot of people realize is how fragile supply chain links were and how one country could essentially, rupture the entire supply chain of certain products.
Right.
And so for a while, I don't know if you remember when you were trying to buy a new vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't find it because they were not shipping the chips that were going into these vehicles. And so a lot of industries were getting, these shortages, and that completely, for a lot of people, transformed the way that they were looking at supply linkages. And so they were looking at regionalization get closer linkages and, manufacture closer to where your end customer is going to be, or where your facilities and supply networks are. And so one of the big winners was Mexico, obviously, but a lot of companies were also looking to reestablish these links in the US. And so there's a big push to localize and make it in America, essentially, so that we can be closer to where the end customer is and make sure that if anything happens, outside of our control, you're able to still be able to provide quality service and provide, the products close to your end customer.
Wow, ever changing, ever growing. Interestingly, you've already had a transformative impact in the county's industrial community because you've created the Industrial Advisory Committee.
Yeah,
which is amazing. I know you guys I've been meeting pretty frequently, having offline communications and just keeping everybody together. But talk about how important that is to create an industrial community that's together and not separate.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the fundamental kind of theories of economic development is, fostering these just open communication and these linkages between public, private sector, and making sure that you bring all the different stakeholders into the table. Right. And so when I first arrived to the position, I did a benchmark analysis, seeing what other, similar communities were doing. And one of the things that, struck me was that in the county, there were a lot of separate conversations that were very similar in nature. And so figured, why not bring everyone together and make sure that, all of the different stakeholders in this process are able to get the feedback straight from the source, right?
Indeed.
And ultimately, that fosters like collaboration, and better ideas, because if you have people from the public and private sector working together as a team in improving economic development strategies and just bringing feedback to us, because ultimately we were doing attraction, retention, and expansion of industrial businesses.
That's right.
And so I have a limited vision of what that looks like, and getting input and feedback from all these different stakeholders, through a medium like the advisory board has been incredibly helpful in me getting all that information, data, and feedback on what the market is doing, and how we can bring all that into crafting a cohesive economic development strategy to ultimately position the county as an attractive destination for high quality jobs and industrial businesses that want to set up in the broader DMV area for them to come here.
Do you feel like it's been effective? Do you see increased collaboration, conversations now that maybe didn't happen before?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak of before I came here, but at least I'm seeing those conversations now.
That's great. That's great. Love it, man. And you also have a trade mission to Mexico City, the second one. I know you guys went to Select USA last year, but going to Select USA, inviting Prince George's County business owners. How important is it to create linkages or facilitate business between American companies in Prince George's County and Mexico?
Yeah, so we're very excited about that. So we're going at the end, last week of February, coming back at the beginning of March. Okay. And we're very excited because, for one, most people don't know that Mexico is the U.S. is the largest trade partner. And a lot of states are taking advantage of these linkages with Mexico, and there's a lot of existing infrastructure, a lot of existing business connections, and different organizations that are supporting trade. And so one of the things that when I got to Maryland really struck me was that Mexico is not one of the three main trade partners of Maryland, which is a huge opportunity. And I think there's a lot of products, and I've been meeting with Martin, our Director of International Business, Alicia Moran, Director for Entrepreneurship and the Incubator. And there's a lot of really cool products that are made here in the county that would be very successful down in Mexico. Okay. So there's a lot of different markets, and as part of the EDO role, making sure that we support these companies to expand not only here in the county but internationally. Also drives more jobs, drives more revenue, and allows them to grow, even to be able to supply to other new markets. And so I think Mexico provides that huge opportunity that other states are taking advantage of, that provides this new opportunity for Maryland to be more proactive in finding some of these Latin American markets, and Mexico is the closest one. And like I said, like even a lot of there's a lot of companies that both speak English, have English speaking staff, that already import from the U.S. And so being able to leverage some of that data and work with these companies to make a successful trade mission is what we're doing right now.
Yeah, it's an incredible opportunity for businesses right now. Why does expansion start here in Prince George's County for manufacturing and warehousing to you?
I would say there are a couple fundamental drivers that I think make Prince George's very competitive. Okay. So for one, we're one of the largest counties in the region, and we have a number of both Class A industrial development. So a lot of the new buildings that are coming online are in the county. Okay. And so that, for start, that being able to have product that we can put out into the market and sell is a very fortunate position to be in. So a lot of things, and in our advisory board, we have developers of two of the largest industrial parks in the region. We have brokers that we work with and that are some of our key partners in telling the Prince George's County story. So we're just the fundamentals for industrial in the county make a lot of sense. Two, high quality labor force. So we have a really talented and highly educated workforce for a lot of these positions. So that is ultimately, when you look at site selection and some of the decisions that come into where to locate some of these warehouses, you want to look at where am I going to get my people. And Prince George's County is incredibly fortunate to have really high quality workforce. And so if you look at where a lot of the warehouses and the distribution networks for the broader DC area are, we have a very substantive chunk of that because of that reason. And third is we're sitting right next to DC and through the I-95 corridor. Absolutely. So trying to go north, Prince George's County is strategically located, and if you're trying to go south, we can do that as well. And so like just location wise, we serve as that middle point in the entire eastern corridor. Which is very attractive. Plus, we have the Port of Baltimore that is, less than an hour away. We have 4 airports that are, less than an hour away for Prince George's County. And so ultimately, just both the connections that we have as a warehousing hub, just from the ways of putting product in a warehouse here and then distribute it, is very attractive for a lot of businesses.
A hub. You said the workforce is skilled and plentiful, and we're positioned correctly regionally. That is all the reasons and many more why Prince George's County is obviously amazing for warehousing and manufacturing.
Yeah, and I think the other piece is that this is one of the most affluent,
absolutely,
and wide population in the nation, and so as a hub for consumers. We're sitting, if you want to sell to affluent, customers, the Metro DC area is a phenomenal place, which is why, again, when you look at like where a lot of these warehouses are that are looking to put product in front of, affluent consumers, it's here, So you're looking, Prince George's County, and you're looking at that being able to service that broad, DC metro area. And that is a very fortunate position to be in as well, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, we love it. And thank you for bringing your version of industrial evangelism to Prince George's County. We appreciate it. Folks that need to work with you, go to our website to find you. But Jose, what you do is one of the reasons why expansion starts here.